Righto, so that was hiking the Stirling Ridge Walk here in Western Australia. It's about 4.5 hours drive southeast of Perth, and you're looking at about 2,000 metres of elevation gain over about 30-ish kilometres, which might not seem too bad, but this was by far the hardest hike I have done to date. I thought it was going to be somewhat similar in difficulty to Frenchman's Cap in Tassie, but yeah, this was just a whole another ball game. It was so challenging physically, mentally, and technical as well, like nothing I had ever done before. So if you're thinking about doing this one, just do not underestimate how difficult this hike actually is. So on the first day, I had reasonable weather up until lunchtime when I summited Ellen Peak. And after that, that was when the clouds and fog started rolling in. Visibility dropped pretty rapidly to only about 10 or 15 meters in front of me. And the heavens opened up not too long after that. It was absolutely bucketing down for some sections of the trail. I was slipping over everywhere, lost count of how many times I lost the trail. Also lost count of how many times I stacked it. Thankfully, it wasn't too bad, but my hands got pretty cut up by the end of the day. So yeah, 4.5 hours roughly of just seemingly sludging it and trekking through this torrential rain at times. And I was very, very grateful to actually get to camp that night and have a fire and warm up a little bit. The next morning was looking pretty miserable with the weather as well. A couple of hours later though, it started clearing up and I could actually see where I was going. So that was a pretty nice change after the day before. It also started to dry out the track, which was super nice because I wasn't slipping over every 2 seconds. And that was also pretty good timing because I had just started coming up to the arrow section, and that is by far the hardest part of the track. Especially the first arrow. It is just super sketchy. I'm 99% sure I went down a way I wasn't meant to go down, but I just could not work out how you were actually meant to get down the first arrow. Nevertheless, it was so sketchy, and I didn't want to film any of it because there was just no way I was going back for my camera and tripod. Yeah, just wanted to minimize the risk of injuring myself. So yeah, there was pretty minimal filming in that kind of little area, but I mean, if you put one wrong foot somewhere or you just slipped, there was a high chance that you were going to do some major damage to yourself. So yeah, I just did not want to risk that at all, but it was super sketchy in some areas. After that though, it kind of got a little bit easier. There was about a 50-meter stretch where it was just so overgrown. I just could not find the trail at all and just charged through these trees. I ended up losing my trekking pole. It got snagged in, I'm assuming on a branch in there, but there was no way I was going back for it because it would have been like finding a needle in a haystack in that bunch of trees. Overall though, I really enjoyed this hike. It's like nothing else I had ever done before, especially with the cave camping. That was a massive highlight for me. And there's so many different campsites that you can do along the trail, so it's really just kind of take your pick, and as they come you're like, wow, I have to sit up here. So I chose to camp in that one particular spot, but there's at least another 2 spots that I would love to revisit in the future. I reckon it'd be so cool to set up a tent in a couple of those locations and just do the whole classic droney zoom out and reveal the stunning backdrop and landscape that the Stirling Ranges is. So yeah, would love to revisit a couple of those places in the future. But yeah, just be warned that this is not for the inexperienced. I would highly recommend getting a couple of overnight hikes under your belt before even considering doing this. And if the weather isn't looking too crash hot, seriously, do not even consider doing it at all, because there was a couple of moments there I was like, oh, it's getting a little bit too sketchy for me. And I've done enough overnight hikes now to kind of know my limits, but I think if you're just starting off fresh, there is a real possibility that things can go south very quickly. So just keep that in mind. You also have to bring all of your water with you as well, because there is no reliable water source. It was raining for a large portion of the hike when I did it though, so that is why I drank a lot less water than I would have normally. I'd actually planned to do this trail over 2 nights, but I ended up doing it in just the one. I got to where I was planning to camp on the second night at about 1:30 in the afternoon, and figured I might be able to make it to the end of the trail. So I sat down, did a bit of rough calculations, and then just decided to go for it. So I just booked it to Bluff Knoll after I dumped my water to make my pack a bit lighter. I got up there with a little bit of time to spare, and that's when I did some of the drone shots. But after that, I had to do some trail running to get down to the Bluff Knoll car park in time because my lift was due to leave at about 5:30. And luckily, I got there with about 2 or 3 minutes to spare. So cutting it pretty fine, but also timed it pretty well. I also posted a lot more raw and unedited version of this hike up on Instagram. It goes for about 5.5 minutes and is a story from when I started to when I finished. So it goes through my general thought process and just a bit more of the behind the scenes when I'm filming the video. So yeah, if you're interested in checking that out, please feel free to visit my Instagram. I've got an absolute ripper of a hike planned that is coming up just in about a week's time. So I am really looking forward to that. It involves flying, and fingers crossed it doesn't get cancelled due to Rona. I've had to cancel my last 2 flights because of that, so I'm really hoping this one sticks true and I can knock it off. But yeah, thank you so much for watching if you've made it this far, and until the next video, I will see you then.